On today's episode of You Asked, what's to come with the new Slate Truck and its potential availability? Think it'll be worth the hype? Why does it feel like smartphone design and innovation has stalled recently? And why do directors think that ultra-wide 21:9 is a good ratio for movies? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Chris Hagan, video producer at Digital Trends, and this is You Asked, the show where we answer your tech questions. If you've got something you want to know, send your question to youasked@digitaltrends.com. And don't forget to tune in every Sunday at 7:45 a.m. Pacific to see if your question has been selected for the show. This week, editorial director Gareth Beavis joins us to talk smartphone technology, but we begin with managing editor John McCann, filling us in on the latest with the Slate Truck and what appears to be a pretty affordable, considering, all-electric option for consumers looking for more variety in that market.
Hi everyone, I'm John McCann, Managing Editor at Digital Trends. Now, some of you have been in touch to ask about the availability of the new Slate electric truck. I'll go through the pre-order process in a moment, but first, let's get everyone up to speed on this newly unveiled EV. What is it? What makes it stand out? And why is it generating quite so much buzz? Well, this is being touted as a sub $20,000 electric truck after government incentives, which you'll be able to customize to your heart's content. It's not standing out maybe for what it is offering, but more for what it isn't offering as standard. There's just one trim and one paint color, grey. There's no touchscreen, no stereo, no Bluetooth, no electric windows. So what do you get? Well, there's 2 seats. There's a 5-meter bed, good for payloads up to 1,400 pounds. There is AC, steel wheels, and hand crank windows, plus all of the standard driver safety assist you expect from a modern car. There's a rear-mounted electric motor, there's a roomy front, and the battery is good for what Slate says it reckons will be around 150 miles. Now, that is not great in the world of EV range, but a larger battery will be available to push that figure up to a slightly more reasonable 240 miles. Now, that bigger battery is just one of over 100 add-ons Slate is making available for this car, not just at point of purchase, but also at any point throughout your ownership, allowing you to swap and change your car at any point while owning it. Want to add a splash of colour? Then take a look at the vast range of vinyl wraps that you yourself can add and remove to the truck at will. Then there's the SUV upgrade kit, converting your 2-seater truck into a 5-seater car. On the inside, infotainment is very much bring your own device. There's no touchscreen, no built-in CarPlay, there's not even a stereo. Instead, you get a universal phone mount and a few USB ports. You can even get additional holders for a tablet if you want a bigger display, and for a Bluetooth speaker if you actually want to listen to some tunes while out for a drive. Now, all of this is really intriguing. Slate is doing something very different to what the traditional car makers are offering. And for anyone who's into their DIY and customization of cars and looking for a cheap entry point into the world of EVs, the Slate Truck is a real consideration. The ability for you to be able to change your truck as your life changes and the different demands change is a really nice hook. And it'll be fascinating to see how this plays out. You can reserve your Slate Truck now online for just $50 down, and that's fully refundable if you have a change of heart. In terms of when the truck will arrive on driveways, we haven't got a firm date yet, but it is expected to land next year.
Hi, I'm Gareth Beavis, Editorial Director at Digital Trends, and I'm here to answer some of your questions this week around the world of phones and tablets. Now, I've been covering this space since 2008, and I've pretty much seen it all. Phones that fold, phones that flap, phones that do everything. And tablets, they have come from this very small device to this much larger devices that we're seeing right now. So this world is still very exciting and there's a lot to talk about. So let's dive right into some of your questions. The first comes from Christopher John, who is at Christopher John 8236. Lovely to meet you. He says, "Hi team, I'm weighing my options between the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra and the ZTE Red Magic Nova for both productivity and gaming. Now, which one would give me value for my money? Thanks. Watching your channel from Trinidad." Well, lovely to meet you, Christopher John. And this is a great question because with tablets, we've got essentially the two things you're looking for: Gaming is a very popular task right now, and we've also got productivity, which is obviously the main reason tablets kind of came into existence. Bigger phones turned into tablets. It became entertainment first, but then it was really, how much of a computer can they be? We've seen that with Apple sort of calling the iPad Pros supercomputers. So this is a really great question. And I'd say, actually, you've chosen two that fit both camps in very different ways. So let's start with the Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra. Now this, let's start with, is a very expensive device. It's over $1,000, I think $1,200 if you're getting it in some places. But it does come with some really great productivity chops. One of the things that I've always been impressed with since the very beginning is DeX. Now, I'm not saying I'm impressed with the performance. In the very early days, DeX didn't work very well, but it's got a lot better since then. And we found in our review this time that it really does work in a way that you'd want. So you can actually, cast this onto multiple screens. You can find different things that you can do. You can multi-window. And when you add in the S Pen as well, which comes included, which doesn't happen with the Apple Pencil, by the way, that's a real boon because you're able to use the power of Galaxy AI, which is still burgeoning. We're not saying that's a real reason to buy just yet, but be able to sketch and turn your sketches into actual pictures, try different filters, different styles of artistic license, that kind of thing. You've got a really good tablet for that. You've also got a real powerhouse as well. Yes, it does have a MediaTek Dimensity chipset inside, but that isn't actually slowing things down. It's scoring very well on the benchmarks that we found, and it wasn't slowing anything down. It really allowed you to use that huge screen, by the way, 14 inches. Now, this doesn't mean it's portable, I'll be honest, but it does mean you've got a lot of screen real estate to play with. So if you are sketching, if you are multi-windowing, you can do a lot of things at once. And I think that's really where the strength comes in there, because if you want to have, you're watching maybe some sport, a film, and you're trying to do something in the background, that can work really well. And if you're looking for other things as well, so if you wanted to do word processing, just typing away, and you want to be doing other things in the background, even video editing, there is a possibility to do that here. You've got a really powerhouse device. Now, if you're looking at the ZTE, this is clearly a gaming device. You've got the thermal cooling, you've got the really quick latency on the screen. It's got very high refresh rate, so inputs work really, really nicely. You can cast things straight up to a larger screen. So if you're really into, being able to use it and see things larger, because let's be honest, the screen on the ZTE Magic is not the greatest. It is LCD, but it really doesn't have the same kind of inky blacks and the overall performance that we're getting with the AMOLED on the Samsung. But if you aren't too bothered about that, or you are casting to a different display, it works really well as basically like a mobile console. It's a really great device for that. You've got the aesthetics, you've got the speed, and you've got that price. So bang for the buck. Even when you count the fact that it isn't as productivity focused, the ZTE is probably the winner there. However, if you're looking for something that can just work really well, the Samsung is a really great device. In terms of your question, Christopher, being which one will give you value for money, I'd say the ZTE Magic is the one for you. But do read our reviews, because they take in very different directions, and it will show you, right, if you do need that S Pen productivity performance, it is right there, but it is expensive. But if it's gaming that you really care about and you don't mind having, more of a light experience when it comes to, getting your work done, the ZTE is a great choice. Next question is from Talix JB8BP. Nice to meet you. What are you most excited about in new phones? Now, this one's easy because I'll be honest, a few years ago, I started to get a bit bored with phones because they're all starting to look quite similar. I don't mean in terms of like the overall look, but essentially you've got a rectangular block, black screen that does things for, I'd say 7 or 8 years ago would have been amazing for very little money. So they're kind of getting quite close in terms of what they could do. You can't really buy a bad phone anymore, which when I first started reviewing was very easy and was very fun to review because there were some good 1 stars out there. There were some good 5 stars. Now things have all got to a very good level and you can't really get yourself a terrible device, but there are things that you can do to differentiate. But one of the things I'm most excited about is foldable phones. Now it kind of sounds obvious because we've had them for a while, but I have been covering this even before I became a tech journalist. I was looking at rollable displays in a kind of a B2B sense, and the excitement has been palpable for 20 years. I think we're finally, and I mean finally, getting to the point where foldable phones are actually becoming exciting. And I think that's because of the trifold devices that are coming. Huawei brought it with the Mate from last year. We actually had 3 screens folding out. Now that's where things start to get exciting for me, because if you can truly turn a smartphone into a tablet, that's when we're into the kind of the world of next steps of science fiction almost, really, even though it's right here. There are a lot of things to change. I think the creases, everyone says creases are getting better. They're still not good enough for me. They need to be gone, essentially. So you feel like you truly are going from a Samsung Galaxy S25 to a Galaxy Tab. That would be amazing. But in terms of this kind of capability to go from just one small device, and now they're getting decent in their own right as a smartphone, and having that fold out again and again, that's where it gets really exciting. Right, so the final question comes from our Instagram community and asks the very simple thought: has smartphone design innovation stalled? Now this comes from the iPhone 17 rumored to look very much like the Google Pixel, and I'd say yes. I think smartphone innovation, especially when it comes to design, has stalled. I think it has got, I'd say 5-6 years ago, got quite similar. I'm not saying that it's completely identical. You can see some really interesting things, especially from some of the smartphone manufacturers in China doing clever camera arrays on the back that give a real identity, and it looks very different. But Samsung, Apple and Google are all doing the same thing. Yeah, I think things are starting to get quite homogenized. I'm not saying they look exactly the same and next to each other you can definitely tell what's what, but I think that the days when only a smartphone just for the way it looked, I'm talking your HTC days, when the early days of the iPhone, some of the Samsung, the LG phones they used to be very iconic and look very different. That's changed, and I think that the kind of like the homogenized rectangle is really here to stay. Is that a problem? I don't think so. I'm quite excited by the thinner devices coming right now. The iPhone 17 Air, if it does turn up, I think it'll be really cool. I think holding thin phones feels tangibly different to I'd say thicker. They're not thick anymore. They're still really thin compared to what they used to be. But that tangible thinness, I think, is going to be really good. And we're seeing it with Samsung as well. This trend towards thinner smartphones, and multiple Chinese brands have tried to do the same thing. It's really cool. Thanks very much. I'm looking forward to answering more of your smartphone, tablet, wearable questions in the future. So please send them in. I'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Gareth. Our next question comes from Jeff, who asks, what would be the best soundbar for an 18 by 15 bedroom? I'm new to the soundbar experience and want a good sound, but under $600. Jeff, I feel you, especially on the under $600 part. Fortunately, soundbars not only come in a variety of shapes with an even larger variety of features, but they're also not as expensive as you think and still pack a ton of quality. To try to keep it simple for you, I'm gonna give you a few options since I don't know your exact setup in the room, and maybe these get some more of the creative juices flowing that you maybe didn't think about. The first is the Bose Smart Soundbar, and it just straight up delivers and checks every box I know I'd want in a bedroom. It's not too large and should fit easily under most TVs, and of course, it's Bose, and it brings the audio fidelity that the brand is known for. It supports Dolby Atmos and uses their True Space technology, so it's doing its best to add an immersive layer to whatever content you're watching. But above all, it expertly handles what a lot of people find most important: dialogue. There's an AI dialogue mode that helps clear up some of those tough to hear conversations without overpowering or degrading the rest of the audio. That's especially clutch if, say, your bed is against the opposite wall of where the TV's placed or the soundbar's placed, and you still want to hear the important details of your favorite show. And it's $500, so it's within your budget with a little bit of room to spare. Now, if you wanted to save a little bit more and have the setup to support it, the Polk Audio Magnify Mini AX retails for $500, but at the time of publishing this video, it's on sale for $400 US. The soundbar itself is very compact, supports Dolby Atmos and DTS:X audio, and features Polk's very own dialogue clarity feature that they call Voice Adjust. The kicker with this one is it comes with a wireless subwoofer, so if you really want the extra bass to give your bedroom even more of a home theater vibe, this may be the one. Now, personally, I don't know if I'd want a subwoofer in that space, but hey, could be fun. Now, in case you want one more option that's back on the more traditional side, I'll also throw in the Klipsch Flexus Core 300, which comes in at about the same price, retailing for $500, but currently on sale for $400. It's got big sound as an all-in-one soundbar, and like the previous mentions, supports Dolby Atmos. Klipsch totes its dedicated horn-loaded tweeter in this soundbar that helps provide vocal clarity as well. Clearly, dialogue matters. Hope that helps, Jeff. Let us know which one you choose. The next question comes from Andy, who asks, what are your thoughts on streaming boxes and what is the best streaming box to buy? Thanks for this question, Andy. This is another one that comes with more options than you probably care to hear me list, but I will give you my top 3. Let's get to your first question first, though. My thoughts on streaming boxes are, they're awesome, especially when configured correctly. They're pretty plug and play, but if you're ever curious about the deeper details, we do have a lot of videos and guides on the channel and digitaltrends.com diving into more of those settings. Streaming boxes are especially helpful when you have a preferred operating system like Google TV, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire TV. A streaming box will give you what you want rather than relying on what the TV offers. And if it's not a newer TV or a top-tier TV, maybe that streaming box runs faster than your TV's operating system. Plus, some TVs allow you to customize which HDMI input loads when you turn on the TV. So, with your preferred streaming box, you won't have to worry about ever dealing with the TV's operating system if you don't want to. My top pick would be the Google TV Streamer, or for a little less, the Google Chromecast with Google TV, mainly for ease of setup and use. One account houses your apps and manages logins and makes things pretty seamless. The layout is really clean and plays nice with a variety of apps. The streamer runs faster and smoother than the Chromecast in terms of navigation and has more storage, and makes for a great main room setup. So it seems like most people do prefer that streamer over the Google Chromecast. Next up, having used it for a few years myself, I'm also a fan of Roku's options, and as a matter of fact, they just released new products. The new Streaming Stick Plus is the top option for 4K streaming and only improves on what's been a proven option for high-quality streaming, functionality, and, important, ease of use. Also important, it's just $40. Now, I will say those options I just listed, both Google and Roku, can be prone to ads on the home screen of the operating system. Welcome to 2025. So if that does bother you, the Apple TV 4K is worth considering. But there's a new Apple TV device expected in 2025. So if you do lean that way, just keep an eye out for that to make sure you're getting the latest tech, especially if you're buying something toward the end of its lifespan. Our final question reads, remember when we all used to complain about black bars? Why do directors think 21:9 is a good aspect ratio now? No one's buying ultra-wide monitors just to watch movies. Well, my friend, I see your logic, but riddle me this, Batman. Do you think directors are making movies for movie theaters or for home viewing on God knows what device? Spoiler alert, it's not the latter. Many directors and cinematographers have their own vision for the movie in mind and how it will be displayed on the big screen. And in a theater, especially with some of the extravagant screen options we have now, movies can play better and be more immersive in that wide format. Or that's just how the director and cinematographer wanted it to be filmed and displayed. Take a recent absolute masterpiece like Sinners, for example. Director Ryan Coogler and director of photography Autumn Arkapaw shot it on film to be shown in ultra-wide, tall IMAX, and regular formats, in addition to a couple of others, but took the time to show how each way of viewing it is unique. It's really cool to hear him explain if you haven't. But there are other cinematic creators that shoot their films for how it will look best or how they want it to look on the big screen, and everyone else just has to deal with it. Once it hits streaming services, unless specifically planned for, I think it's often out of these creators' hands in terms of how it's going to be pushed out to the wide variety of streaming boxes, TVs, monitors, and all of those things that typically all support pretty different formats. Speaking of which, with shows and movies that do go straight to streaming services, especially those with budgets like Netflix, Disney+, Prime, and Max, a lot of that content is created specifically for those services, likely to be viewed on a standard 16:9 ratio TV. So it makes sense to shoot it at the standard 1.77 or 1.78 to 1 ratio. And it looks phenomenal. These are big budget shows. So shooting in an ultra-wide aspect ratio for movies for the cinema is another way to make them stand out. And to answer your question specifically, sorry, directors have always thought 21:9, or as it's known in the movie world, 2.35 or 2.4 to 1 ratio was a good format. You can check IMDb for a long list of movies filmed this way, including the Matrix trilogy, Forrest Gump, Indiana Jones, the Alien and Die Hard franchises. The list goes on and on. Thanks as always, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you even more for sending questions in. Be sure to get yours into youasked@digitaltrends.com for future episodes. You can also submit questions on our community posts here on YouTube and other social media platforms. they're generally easier to find there than in the comments section of some of these videos. We'd love it if you gave this video a like on the way out, and be sure to subscribe to see if your question gets answered in any future episodes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.